Hello all, welcome to How to Build the Fantastic Four, 2nd edition. This is a compilation of our 4 other videos, how to build Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, the Thing, and the Human Torch. But if you've already seen those videos, you may still want to stick around, because after each segment, there's a bit of commentary addressing how we make these videos, and responding to a couple of suggestions that we got in the comments. So without further ado, let's get started with the undisputed leader of the Fantastic Four.
Hello all, and welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Starfinder 2nd edition. This week, we're building the elegant and powerful Sue Storm, actress, scientist, and cosmic superhero. As the level-headed backbone of the team, Sue wields mastery over the electromagnetic spectrum, allowing her to vanish from sight, blind her foes, and even alter her appearance in an instant. But her true strength lies in her force fields. Whether shielding allies or hurling them as weapons, Sue is a force to be reckoned with. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So, what do we need to be Mrs. Invisible? First, invisibility. Kind of a given with a name like that. Next, force fields, to defend herself and her allies. And finally, we need the power to throw those force fields with force. Sue is a human, which means 8 hit points, medium size, and a boost to intelligence and charisma. Do you have the human stats memorized yet? For our heritage, we take Urbanite, letting us weave through crowds effortlessly and pick out foes who think blending into a busy street will keep them safe. We're going to take scientist background so we can keep up with the world's smartest man with a few doctorates of her own. Sue has proven time and time again that she is Reed's equal, and she will accept being treated as nothing less. This background gives us a bonus to intelligence and charisma, training in crafting and space lore, and the assurance feat, ensuring our knowledge of the great beyond is consistent, if nothing else. For our class, we're going to go Witch Warper for some serious zone control. This class gives us 8 plus Constitution modifier hit points per level. Sue's force fields make her one of the most durable heroes out there. We're trained in perception, trained in reflex and fortitude saves, and expert in will saves. Sue definitely practices brain over brawn, but that doesn't mean you should underestimate her tenacity. Witch Warpers get training in 3 skills plus our intelligence modifier. So let's pick Society, so we can figure out how to order a pizza on any planet. Athletics, reflecting her training in Judo. Diplomacy, Sue is probably the only member of the Fantastic Four you'd actually want talking to the media, despite Johnny's protest. Nature and Occultism, I don't know which of these skills cover alien biology, so we'll take both to cover our bases. Performance, Sue actually spent some time as an actress before becoming a superhero. Stealth and Thievery, your entire thing as a superhero is getting around unseen. For gear, we can use any simple weapons we can get our hands on, and we're up to light armor, which may make sense. Those jumpsuits may be made of unstable molecules, but I don't think they provide much protection against alien battle axes. For our attributes, strength and dexterity both start at +0. Nothing against Sue, but take away her powers, and she's not lasting long in a typical Marvel fight. Constitution is at a +1. Like I said earlier, her force fields make her one of the most durable characters in Marvel, and that includes surviving attacks when they break through. Intelligence is at a +4. In front of every brilliant woman scientist, there's a bigger male scientist with an inflated ego taking credit for the team project. Wisdom's at a +1. She's definitely the level-headed one of the group, but honestly, have you seen the group? That's not saying much. And finally, Charisma is at a +3. Between being a mother, keeping Johnny and Ben from ripping each other's heads off, and convincing her workaholic husband to actually come out of his lab for dinner, Sue's real superpower is a silver tongue. Hey you. Have you liked and subscribed yet? You should do that. It helps us out, and it tells YouTube that you need to see more of our videos. It's a win-win. Besides, the subscribe button glows whenever I say subscribe, so you should at least check that out. Alright, back to the video. As with most level 1 classes, we have to choose our subclass, and as Witch Warpers, we actually get 2. For our paradox, none of the listed options really fit the character, but with a touch of reflavoring, and a large helping of ignoring extra spells that don't match the character, the gap-infused paradox actually works great. With this paradox, we can throw up a 15-foot radius quantum field within 100 feet, granting ourselves concealment from each creature within that field. It's not full-fledged invisibility, but it's as close as we can get at level 1. We also get an anchor to channel our powers. Since Sue's abilities rely on concentration, we're taking the focal point anchor. With this, whenever something would disrupt one of our spellcasting actions, we can make a DC 15 flat check to continue casting anyway. We also get the Intense Focus action, letting us take an action to ignore the effects of a suppressed condition or reduce our clumsy condition by 1. For our Ancestry feat, we take Cooperative Nature, giving us a +4 circumstance bonus on our attempts to aid. Sue is always ready to help out a fellow superhero, whether that's assisting Reed in the lab or helping Ben hide from a crowd of onlookers. And finally, we get the bread and butter of any spellcaster, our spells. We're going to ignore the bonus spells granted by our paradox, partly because we really don't get a choice in taking them, and spellcaster builds tend to be longer than martial builds already, but mostly because they really don't fit our character. If you really want a narrative justification for them, just say Reed made an invention that does whatever the spell does. For our cantrips, we're going to get Shield, which creates a small force field around us, increasing our AC and giving us the shield block reaction, letting us reduce incoming damage. Forbidding Ward lets us extend that force field to any ally, but since it requires more concentration to make the field follow them, it only grants defense against one creature. Telekinetic Hand wraps a force field around an object, allowing us to move it around at will. And Telekinetic Projectile lets us throw a force bolt at a foe because we need something that can actually deal damage. For our first rank spells, Carry All creates a disc of force to carry things around, perfect for doing laundry or setting up a triage station for downed allies. Force Barrage throws several force bolts at an enemy. These blasts can't miss, but they don't do a ton of damage either. And lastly, Invisible Item. Turns an item invisible. Yeah, I feel like I didn't really need to explain that one. At level 2, we can activate our Quantum Field as soon as initiative is rolled with the Quantum Pulse feat. This means we can immediately make ourselves harder to hit, letting us support our allies without becoming a liability. We also pick up the Experienced Smuggler skill feat, making it easier to sneak in small objects past onlookers. Not that we really need it, since we can just turn things invisible. Good luck finding that. At level 3, we take the Barricade General feat, letting us create a larger force field to take cover, boosting our defense and giving us an edge in a shootout. But much more importantly, we gain access to rank 2 spells. Blur grants us concealment for a full minute, making us harder to hit. Invisibility lets us become undetected for 10 minutes. At first glance, it seems like the superior option since it lasts longer, but it ends immediately if we take a hostile action. That means Blur is better if we want to stay in the fight, while Invisibility is ideal for support and repositioning. And lastly, See the Unseen helps us counter enemies who try to use our own stealth tactics against us. One of the hardest parts of replicating a character in Pathfinder and Starfinder is the fact that most characters don't have spell slots. Sue's powers are essentially limitless, so running low on spell slots can seem a little jarring. The Quantum Recycle class feat at level 4 helps alleviate that by letting us use our reaction when we cast a second or higher ranking spell to immediately regain a spell slot of 1 level lower, letting us save off cantrip spamming for a little bit longer. For our skill feat, Quiet Allies lets our entire team use the lowest stealth check when sneaking, reducing the risk of one person ruining the infiltration. Now, who's got the worst stealth in the Fantastic Four? Ben's made of rocks, but let's be real, good luck getting Johnny to shut up. At level 5, we take the Galactic Explorer Ancestry feat, representing all the time the team spends traveling through space to stop cosmic threats. This feat makes all of our successes in navigation critical successes, and shaves off a day for every 4 days of travel, perfect for a team that regularly hops dimensions. We also get Reflex Expertise, boosting our reflex proficiency to Expert, making us quicker on our feet. For rank 3 spells, we grab Blindness, because fun fact, if your eyes turned invisible, light wouldn't enter them, meaning you'd be blind. Sue can now just do that, to someone else. We also take Shared Invisibility, letting us make multiple allies vanish at once. And finally, Kinetic Ram pushes back anyone who gets too close, because personal space is important, even for superheroes. At level 6, we enhance our zone control with Enlarged Quantum Field, increasing the area of our concealment bubble. Plus, we can spend an action each round to extend it by 5 feet, slowly covering more ground as the fight progresses. We also take the Pickpocket skill feat, because while the boys are busy brawling and grandstanding, Sue can slip behind enemy lines and steal the MacGuffin without anyone noticing. At level 7, we grab the Toughness feat, because if you're on the same team as the guy who wrestles with the Hulk, you'd better have some extra hit points to survive the collateral damage. We also boost our spellcasting DCs with Expert Spellcaster, making it harder for enemies to resist our force-based attacks. For 4th rank spells, we get Containment, wrap a force field around a target, perfect for detaining a villain or shielding civilians. Fly, because riding around on a floating force disc is just too iconic to pass up. And lastly, Invisibility Curtain, a 60-foot wall that turns all creatures behind it invisible. Shared invisibility may be good for the team's day-to-day, but this is what you break out for the big crossover event. At level 8, we gain the Soothing Anchor class feat, allowing us to regain temporary hit points equal to our level whenever we use an anchor ability. While we've never seen Sue use magical healing in the comics, she does serve as a bit of a healer in the Marvel Rivals game, so this fits with her ability to protect her team. We also pick up Group Impression, which allows us to rally the team to join together as the Fantastic Four. Or maybe just calm down an angry mob outside Ben's door. Whether it's calming the crowds or giving a pep talk to the team, Sue's got charisma to make things work. At level 9, we will take the Adapted Cantrip Ancestry feat, letting us add the Ricochet spell to our spell repertoire, letting us hit 2 creatures with a Disc Force. For a more lore-accurate form of damage, Magical Fortitude also kicks in at this level, upgrading our Fortitude saves to Expert, and we get 5th rank spells. Repelling Pulse serves as a direct upgrade to Kinetic Ram, affecting all creatures within 30 feet, and the Telekinetic Hull lets us use our force fields to move an object of up to 80 bulk. We are out of level appropriate spells at this level, so we are going to go back and pick up some lower rank spells we missed, like Sanctuary, which allows us to protect an ally, forcing foes to make a will save to attack them. At level 10, we take the Quantum Aura class feat, which expands our quantum field into a 10-foot emanation aura around us. This aura moves with us and automatically grants us concealment for creatures that get too close. It's a great way to stay protected while moving around the battlefield, ensuring we remain elusive. We also gain the Full Senses feat, which lets us hide not just from creatures who rely on sight, but also from those who depend on other senses. We can even hide from someone like Matt Murdock. With this ability, Sue is basically untouchable, whether it's on the field or sneaking around unseen. At level 11, we pick up the Fleet feat, which increases our movement speed by 5 feet. While it may seem simple, that extra movement really adds up, allowing us to get into position or out of danger much quicker than expected. We also gain Perception Expertise, boosting our Perception proficiency to Expert. This will help Sue spot hidden foes and react faster during combat, making her even more aware of her surroundings. For our Greater Paradox, we're sticking with our decision to ignore the focus spells, but we also gain rank 6 spells at this level, adding some serious utility into our toolkit. Telekinetic Strangulation lets us put a bubble around an opponent's head, depriving them of oxygen as we lift them into the air. While this feels like a more aggressive move, don't underestimate Sue's protective instincts. She's not afraid to fight dirty when it comes to protecting her loved ones. Wall of Force allows us to create a wall of force. Man, these spells are really going to put me out of business. Scintillating Safeguard provides Sue and her allies with a damage reduction against incoming attacks. This can save the day when facing tough opponents, helping Sue keep her team safe while she continues to support them from the backlines. At level 12, we pick up the Sense Abnormalities class feat, giving Sue the ability to detect magic at all times. With her complete control over the visible light spectrum, this feat lets her sense magical anomalies just like she can control light herself, making her even more attuned to the world around her. We also get Subtle Thief skill feat, allowing Sue to steal things without anyone noticing. I thought the goal was already to remain unseen and undetected, but this feat takes it a step further, allowing her to pilfer through items without anyone being the wiser. It's the perfect addition for someone who excels at stealth, both in combat and out of it. At level 13, Sue gains the Cooperative Soul Ancestry feat, which enhances her ability to support her teammates. This feat ensures that she can't roll anything less than a success when attempting to aid an ally. It reinforces Sue's role as the level-headed, supportive figure of the team, making sure she's always there when her friends need help, whether in combat or otherwise. We also pick up Defensive Aura, which increases our armor proficiency to Expert, and Weapon Specialization, giving her a damage boost. Sue may not be known for dealing the most damage, but now she has a little extra punch when the situation calls for it. At this level, we also get 7th rank spells, bringing our power to new heights. The spells we're picking are Energy Aegis, which activates Sue's Unstable Molecule suit to provide her with the energy resistance, protecting her from a variety of energy-based attacks. Mystic Armor, allowing her to create a personal force field for even more protection in dire situations. And Protection, which lets her cast a similar force field over an ally, shielding them from harm when they need it most. At level 14, Sue unlocks the Persistent Quantum Field feat, allowing her to create a quantum field that lasts for a full minute rather than requiring constant maintenance. This is a game changer, as it gives her more flexibility in combat and helps conserve actions, allowing her to focus on the critical task while still providing support with her powerful field of concealment. Additionally, Sue gains the No Cause for Alarm feat, which allows her to keep the public calm, even in the face of overwhelming threats like Galactus, who might be threatening to devour the planet. At level 15, Sue gains the Feather Step feat, allowing her to create a force field under her feet, letting her step into difficult terrain with ease and move without hindrance. This provides both practicality and flavor for her ability to traverse the battlefield gracefully. Along with that, Sue's Master Spellcasting feat increases her spellcasting proficiency to Master. For her rank 8 spells, Sue gains the following. Disappearance takes Sue's invisibility to the next level, making her undetectable to all senses. Telekinetic Bombardment allows Sue to use telekinesis on larger objects, essentially turning the environment into a weapon. Ocular Overload, Sue can retaliate when enemies try to attack her, blinding them as a form of retaliation. And Forceful Hand, which can summon a hand made of force that can not only ram into foes, pushing them away, but also can be used to grab enemies or create a wall of force to block attacks. At level 16, Sue gains the Quantum Entanglement feat, transforming her quantum field into an even more dangerous tool for controlling the battlefield. Now, when an enemy starts its turn within her quantum field, they must make a will save or become entangled, unable to escape. This makes her a constant threat, as foes must carefully plan their movements or risk being trapped in her powerful quantum web. Sue also reaches the pinnacle of her stealth abilities with the legendary Sneak skill feat. At this point, Sue is practically always hiding, no matter the terrain. Whether she's in a crowded city, dense jungle, or open battlefield, Sue can seamlessly fade into her surroundings. At level 17, we gain the Too Stubborn to Die Ancestry feat, reflecting her resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. This allows us to return to 1 hit point once per day when we would otherwise die. Additionally, we gain access to 9th level spells. With Telekinetic Tantrum, Sue can unleash a chaotic burst of telekinetic energy, sending foes flying in all directions, dealing massive damage or stunning them. Falling Sky can summon a massive force from above, bringing foes to the ground and keeping them there. And Selective Invisibility, where Sue's ability to control the electromagnetic spectrum reaches its peak, allowing her to become invisible to enemies while allowing allies to see her to come to her aid when needed. At level 18, Sue gains the Infinite Magic feat, allowing her to cast a spell even when she's run out of spell slots, twice per day. Now, Sue can continue to support her team and strike down foes with ease, even when it seems like she's run out of resources. She also gains the Swift Sneak skill feat, allowing her to move at full speed while sneaking and avoiding detection. At level 19, we gain Legendary Negotiator, a feat that allows us to forge alliances and sway even the most difficult individuals, such as the Silver Surfer. We also pick up Legendary Spellcaster, boosting our spellcasting DC to Legendary. Finally, with Warped Infinities, Sue can expand the radius of the quantum field to a staggering 100 feet, allowing her to control a massive area. She can now exclude specific squares from the field, concentrating her energy where it's most needed, further amplifying her zone control abilities. For her 10th rank spell, we take Indestructibility, creating a force field so powerful that it grants her immunity to all damage and harmful effects. This is her ultimate defense, a final shield that ensures her survival against even the deadliest threats in the multiverse. Sue's power and her ability to protect those around her has now reached their peak. And finally, at level 20, we get the class feat Quantum Research, in order to get another spell slot for our ultimate force field. And for our skill feat, Impressive Performance, because she's an actor. Remember? Okay, with that skill feat, we may have ended the build with a fizzle, and not a bang. But luckily we have the pros and cons to save us. Our first and most obvious pro is our stealth skills. Legendary Stealth and Thievery, and the ability to turn our entire party invisible. Sign me up. Next, we have so many spell slots that let us protect our allies. From the lowliest cantrips like Shield and Protective Ward, to our 10th rank spell, Indestructibility. I can see why some people would call Sue overprotective. And finally, it's not often that I get to rave about a support build, But this build shines best when it's helping its allies. With feats like Cooperative Nature and Cooperative Soul, Sue is always ready to step in to push her family from failure to success. But now we have to start talking about cons. Sue may be a powerful aid in combat, but her powers definitely lead themselves to more defense rather than offense. Next, our shields have plenty of ways to protect foes against incoming damage, but what happens when a foe isn't trying to damage us? Those AC boosts aren't nearly as good against foes who target our saving throws. And finally, in the comic, the Fantastic Four start to lose powers if they spend too long apart. We don't have to worry about that, but we probably still don't want to go solo. You work best when you have a team to support. On your own, you're pretty annoying to take down, but you really don't have many ways to win a fight solo. Overall, Sue Storm is a master of control, defense, and support. She can shield her allies, disrupt her enemies, and stay out of sight when needed. However, her reliance on spells means that she has to be careful about resource management to stay effective, and she's not as formidable in direct combat as some of the other heroes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Sue's Starfinder build, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future character builds. Hit that bell icon and stay in the loop, and let me know in the comments who you'd like to see next. Until then, keep those dice rolling, and I'll catch you in the next one.
So, if you've really paid attention in that video, you may have noticed that that is not my voice. And that is because the voice you're hearing is actually my amazing wife and the reason this channel exists. I've actually wanted to do YouTube for as long as I can remember, and the two things that I let stop me for a long time were I had no idea how to edit video, and I hated the way my voice sounded. My wife pushed me out of this when she recorded my first ever script for this channel about a year ago. Since then, she's recorded every other video that I've made for this channel. This summer, she's pulled back a bit as she's gone back to school to get her master's in education, and has only started doing our shorts as a result. But she should be back soon as the semester is just wrapped up, and she's ready to get back into the channel. But about the build proper. When we're planning videos for the channel, there are two types of characters that are really hard to make. Those that have so many powers that you just have to jump around a bit to get them all, usually giving up class energy, and characters that have one power that they push to its absolute maximum potential. Just about everyone in the Fantastic Four falls into the latter category. And Sue is actually the build that I think we did the best job at threading the line between not giving her a bunch of extra stuff and not just repeating she can turn invisible every level. Granted, that may be because she's the only character in the bunch that has two powers with force fields and invisibility, but I think we did a really good job making a support character build. And I think you guys think so too, because this is the build we got the least commentary on about how to build her differently.
Hello all, and welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This week, we're taking a look at the brilliant mind behind Marvel's first family, Reed Richards. A born genius in polymath, Reed holds multiple doctorates, but his true passion has always been for the stars. Determined to push the boundaries of space exploration, he designed the Marvel 1, a spacecraft built for interstellar travel. But when government funding was at risk, Reed hastily launched an early test flight with a small crew to prove the ship's potential. Unfortunately, they were caught in a cosmic rainstorm, forcing them to return to Earth. Though they all survived this ordeal, they soon discovered that they had been fundamentally changed, each developing incredible superpowers. In Reed's case, his body became highly malleable, granting him the ability to stretch and reshape himself at will. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So what do we need to be the world's smartest man? Well, first, we need Mr. Fantastic's signature powers: extreme elasticity, the ability to stretch across impossible distances, and the resilience to bounce back from nearly any damage. Next, we have Skeptor's Reed's unparalleled intellect. And I'm not just talking about a sky-high intelligence score. We need to know a little bit about everything, and the skills to put that knowledge to practical use. And finally, we need the leadership skills to transform those closest to us to a world-famous team of celebrity crime fighters. Fantastic as he may be, Reed Richards is still just a boring old human, just one who spent a little bit too much time in the cosmic microwave. That means, for our ancestry, we'll be human. We start with 8 hit points and standard medium size. We'll take an attribute boost to both intelligence and constitution to reflect Reed's genius mind and enhance durability. And finally, we'll choose the versatile heritage to grab the incredible initiative feat, ensuring Reed is always the first to notice and react to incoming problems. For our background, we reach into the Starfinder bucket, grabbing the scientist background. This gives us another boost to intelligence, as well as one to dexterity, perfect for the genius inventor. We also get training in crafting and physics lore, ensuring Reed is well versed in both practical and theoretical science. On top of that, we get the assurance feat, so we never choke on a physics exam, or when making critical calculations under pressure. And don't worry, if your GM won't let you use Starfinder content, you can always pick up the Scholar background for similar benefits. For our class, we're going to go with Investigator, the best intelligence-based option that doesn't rely on magic. After all, could you imagine if Mr. Fantastic used magic? He doesn't even believe in magic, and he lives just a few blocks down from the Sorcerer Supreme. As an Investigator, we'll get 8 plus our Constitution modifier hit points each level, enough to take a few hits, but if Reed is the tank in a fight, things might turn grim. Okay, that pun might have been a bit of a stretch. We also get Expert Perception, reflecting Reed's incredible attention to detail. For saving throws, we're expert in will and reflex, but only trained in fortitude saves. Not surprising for a guy who relies more on brains than brawn. For our skills, we get training in 4 plus our intelligence modifier skills of our choice. We'll take acrobatics and athletics for some basic in-combat mobility, arcana, nature, and occultism to understand and counteract superpowers of all kinds, computers and piloting for high-tech expertise, and medicine because, well, your team doesn't quite have a dedicated healer. We also get trained in simple and martial weapons, but Reed's not exactly known for swinging a sword, and our uniform can count as light armor, giving us at least a bit of protection. For our attributes, strength will start at a +0. If there's any heavy lifting that needs to be done, Reed is the last member of the team you'd call. Dexterity is a +2. If the whole superhero genius inventor thing doesn't pan out, you could always make a living as a contortionist. Constitution is also +2. Despite the joke earlier, Reed's actually pretty durable. Intelligence is at a +4. The world's smartest man has to have max intelligence. No exceptions. Wisdom is +0. Reed can recite the periodic table from memory, but don't ask him to figure out what Sue is thinking. And Charisma is at +1. Just enough to lead the team and stay in the public's good graces. Before we keep going, I'd like to take a moment to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video. It's the best way to let the YouTube algorithm know that you want to see more in the future. At level 1, investigators get a class feat, just like all martial classes. But we're actually going to use our ancestry feat to take natural ambition, giving us 2 class feats instead. First, flexible studies lets us brush up on any subject, granting us training in any skill of our choice each day. This temporary proficiency lasts until we decide to swap it out for something else, ensuring Reed always has the right knowledge at the right time. Next, known weaknesses lets us recall knowledge against a target whenever we devise a stratagem against them. If we succeed, we don't just learn useful information, we also uncover an exploitable weakness within the target, granting us and our allies a +1 circumstance bonus to our attack rolls before the start of our next turn against that target. Science and strategy, just what you'd expect from the world's smartest man. We also gain Pursue Elite, which gives us a +1 circumstance bonus to perception checks and skill checks when investigating a case that we've spent at least a minute reviewing. Even better, we can share this bonus with an ally using the Clue In reaction, helping the team piece together the puzzle. Next, we get Devise a Stratagem, one of the investigator's signature abilities. As an action, or a free action if the target is tied to our case, we can roll a die and decide how to use it. If we choose an attack stratagem, we lock in that roll for our next attack and can replace our strength or dexterity with intelligence to determine if we hit. Alternatively, we could go for a skill stratagem, which prevents us from attacking the target for the rest of the round, but grants us a +1 on our next intelligence, wisdom, or charisma skill check involving the target. Whether it's combat or conversation, Reed is always 3 steps ahead. And finally, we get Strategic Strike, to add a d6 of precision damage to any attack we make against the target with the attack stratagem. At level 2, we're picking up a little magic with the Mage's Dedication. Okay, I might have stretched the truth earlier, but in my defense, Reed doesn't reject magic. He just believes it's science that we don't understand yet. And since Reed understands so much, what we call magic is just another branch of physics to him. The Mage's Dedication gives us a spellbook with 2 cantrips that we can prepare each day. First, Telekinetic Projectile lets us throw a punch at a target within 30 feet, dealing 2d6 damage that scales as we level up. And second, the Timber Cantrip lets us stretch out our arm to strike every creature within a 15-foot line, dealing a little bit of damage and dazzling foes on a critical failure. For our skill feat, we'll take Slippery Prey, which allows Reed to stretch and contort his body to escape any grapple, reducing the usual penalties for multiple escape attempts in the same round. good luck trying to hold on to the guy who's basically made of rubber. At level 3, we get our first skillful lesson, granting us a bonus skill feat that must be used on one of our mental skills. Recognize Spell lets us quickly identify enemy abilities, giving Reed the insight he needs to counter them effectively, whether it's analyzing an opponent's energy blast or breaking down an alien technology's function. Knowledge is power. We also will be grabbing the Adventure skill feat, allowing Reed to replicate inventions of super geniuses he encounters. From Hank's Pym particles to Tony Stark's armored suits, if there's a breakthrough to be had, Reed is already at work reverse engineering it. At level 4, we're enhancing the power of our punches with Arcane Fist through basic martial magic. This feat boosts our unarmed attack damage from D4s to D6s, and lets us ignore the non-lethal trait on our fists. I don't see what the big deal is with Marvel superheroes not being able to kill their foes. No one stays dead in Marvel Comics anyways. For our skill feat, we'll be taking Titan Wrestler, allowing us to grapple with creatures of any size, whether they're towering brutes or oversized monsters. Sure, it might not do much against foes like Galactus, but it'll definitely come in handy against Dragon Man. And no, I did not have to Google who Dragon Man was. At level 5, we're stretching our legs with the Fleet Feet, increasing our speed by 5 feet. Reed's ability to move quickly is just as important as the ability to think quickly. And for this level skill feat, we'll be taking Forensic Acumen, allowing Reed to put his mastery in alien biology to the test. This feat lets us determine the cause of death or injury and immediately make a recall knowledge check as a follow-up question, with a +2 circumstance bonus. And finally, we get Weapon Expertise, increasing our proficiency with unarmed strikes to Expert. We also gain basic mage's spellcasting at this level, unlocking first and second rank spells, giving us the ability to learn spells to fill those spell slots. Longtime viewers of the channel may remember that we used the Admonishing Ray spell in our very first build to replicate Luffy's Gum Gum pistol, and it will be making a return here to throw another stretchy punch at a range of 60 feet. We also get the Wooden Fist spell, a spell that upgrades our fist strikes, granting them the reach trait, extending our range and making our punches even more versatile. At level 7, we're taking the Toughness General feat, which increases our hit point total and makes us a bit more durable in the heat of battle. We also pick up Quick Recognition, which lets us recognize spells even faster, letting us identify enemy attacks as a free action instead of a reaction. Rounding out our features at this level, we gain Vigilant Senses, which increases our perception proficiency to Master, allowing us to notice the smallest details or hidden threats. And Weapon Specialization gives us a damage boost on all of our strikes, whether we're stretching out to punch or wielding a weapon. Every hit lands a little bit harder. At level 8, we get the Spell Striker feat, allowing us to combine one of our fist strikes with an attack roll spell as a single activity. We can only use this once per minute, and if we miss, it's wasted. But by combining this with Devise's stratagem, we can hold off until we're sure that we'll hit, or even better, ensure we'll crit. We also get the Quick Climb skill feat, which increases the speed that we can climb on a successful athletics check. Now, Reed can stretch up to wherever he needs to go. At level 9, we address one of the weaknesses of the Mage's Dedication by taking the Multi-Talented feat, picking up Wizard Dedication. This grants us 2 more cantrips to expand our spellcasting options. The first cantrip, Tanglevine, lets us wrap up foes' feats, slowing them down and possibly immobilizing them altogether. A great way to control the battlefield. The second, Message, lets us stretch our head over to a foe and whisper something in their ear. Perfect for a secret communication. You know, as long as onlookers ignore the man with the 120-foot long neck. We also gain Assured Identification, ensuring we never misidentify an item, which is especially handy when dealing with alien tech or magical artifacts. Additionally, we get Fortitude Expertise, boosting our Fortitude proficiency to Expert, making Reed even more durable. And Investigator Expertise increases our Class DC, which doesn't help us at all. At level 10, we take the Improvised Tools skill feat, making Reed prepared even when he's not, because a genius like him can always cobble something together in a pinch. We also get 1 metric buttload of spells, thanks to both basic Mage's spellcasting leveling up and the basic Wizard spellcasting feat that we take at this level. For our Mage's spell, we're going to take Earthbind, allowing Reed to stretch up to 120 feet, grab a Flying Flow, and bring them crashing to the ground, right into the waiting fist of our grounded allies. And for our Wizard spells, we'll pick up quite a few spells. Illusory Disguise lets Reed change up his basic appearance, perfect for undercover work. Jump turns us into a bouncy ball, letting us spring into action with exaggerated leaps. Long Strider allows us to stretch out our legs for extra movement speed. Tether lets us grab a foe from a distance, keeping them locked down. Enlarge increases our size to large. And Shrink makes us tiny, allowing Reed to squeeze into tight spaces or avoid detection. Got all that? Good. It will be on the test. At level 11, we take Quick Swim, letting Reed turn his hands and feet into oars, increasing his swimming speed. We also pick up Magical Crafting, meaning Reed can now work wonders with a wrench, literally. For our Investigator features, we gain Deductive Improvisation, allowing Reed to figure out things on the fly, making up for missing proficiencies by relying on sheer intellect. And Dogged Will, which increases our will saves to Master, and upgrades all successful will saves to critical successes. At level 12, we gain Expert Mage's Spellcasting, giving us more spell slots for each rank, further expanding our magical, or in this case scientific, toolkit. We also pick up the Quick Squeeze skill feat, letting Reed slip through tight spaces with ease, perfect for a contortionist of his caliber. At level 13, we become the perfect bouncy ball with the Bounce Back Ancestry feat, letting us recover from dying once per day without getting the wounded condition. Reed might take a hit, but he'll always spring back, literally. We also grab Unmistakable Lore, ensuring that we never critically fail a lore check, and we even get extra information on a critical success. When you're the world's smartest man, you don't just guess, you know. We also get Incredible Senses, boosting our perception proficiency to Legendary, Light Armor Expertise, increasing our armor proficiency to Expert, and Weapon Mastery, increasing our weapon proficiency to Master, so even his unarmed stretchy strikes will hit harder and more reliably. At level 14, we pick up Assurance for the second time this build, this time in Arcana, ensuring that Reed can always recall magical knowledge without fail. Oh, what's that? You wanted more spells? Well, since you've stuck around this long, your wish is my command. We'll take the Expert Wizard Spellcasting feat, giving us 2 more ranks of wizard spells, along with 2 more mages spells. For our new spells, we'll grab Lashing Rope, letting us extend our arms like ropes to attack creatures 50 feet away. We can either strike them for 3d6 damage, or trip a creature, knocking them off balance from a distance. And Rebounding Barrier allows us to deflect physical attacks back at the attacker. At this point, we're starting to run out of spells to fit the character, but we've still got a few tricks up our very stretchy sleeves. For our next wizard spells, we'll take Soft Landing to let us puff ourselves out like an airbag, cushioning falling allies and saving them from a nasty impact, and Forceful Hands to inflate our hands to massive proportions before throwing a powerful strike. Level 15 gives us another general feat. Feather Step lets us step around difficult terrain, while Automatic Knowledge lets us make Arcana checks to recall knowledge once per round as a free action. We also get 2 more Investigator features. Greater Weapon Specialization gives us our final damage boost, while Savvy Reflexes increases our reflex proficiency to Master. At level 16, we pick up the Reach spell from the Wizard's feat list. This feat lets us add an action to any spell we cast, in order to add 30 feet to the spell's reach. And the Catfall skill feat ensures that even if we hit the ground at terminal velocity, we can bounce up and keep going like the rubber band man we are. At level 17, we get Heroic Presence. Reed is a billionaire genius superhero without a secret identity. What's not to get inspired by? And Unified Theory lets us roll for any magical check we need using Arcana, rather than occultism, nature, or religion check that we would normally need to make. We also get Greater Dogged Will, increasing our will saves to Legendary, turning all critical failures into normal failures, and having the damage you would take from any failed will saves. At level 18, we get Master Mage's Spellcasting. We don't need any of these new spells, but higher rank spell slots never hurt anybody. And then the Cloud Jump skill feat, though I'm not sure if you can consider it a jump if you just stretch out to your intended destination. At level 19, we get 2 more feats. Canny Acumen increases our fortitude saves to Master, making us even harder to injure or debilitate. And Craft Anything lets us create virtually any item that we set our mind to. We can even ignore the need for spells when crafting magic items, because why rely on magic when you can just science your way through it? Level 19 also gives us a defensive boost with Light Armor Mastery, making us even harder to hit despite our lack of heavy armor. And finally, Master Detective, which not only increases our class DC to Master, but also ensures that any time we enter a room with a clue related to our case, the GM must notify us and explain what form that clue takes. In other words, nothing's getting past us. And finally, at level 20, we get Master Wizard Spellcasting to give us 2 new ranks of spells to play with. The only new spell of note here is Energy Aegis, reflecting Reed's mastery over unstable molecules, providing uniforms that can withstand any condition. And for our final skill feat, we're taking Rapid Mantle, letting us pull ourselves onto edges with ease. Though let's be honest, we're probably just stretching up instead. And with that, we finally built Reed Richards in Pathfinder 2e, a super genius, master of science, and stretchy powerhouse, and the ultimate team leader. But how does the build work in combat? Well, to know that, we're going to need to take a look at the pros and cons. First off, we're extremely mobile, with a base speed of 30 feet, which we can extend to 40 with the Longstrider spell, and plenty of skill feats to enhance our climbing, swimming, and jumping. Enemies are definitely going to have a hard time staying out of our range. Next, move over, Hank. There's a new Scientist Supreme in town. With a maxed out Arcana score, and the ability to roll Arcana for all magical effects, not to mention known weakness, turning our recall knowledge attempts into a tangible offensive boost, we truly are the world's biggest know-it-all. And finally, we're extremely versatile. We can fill just about any role the team needs. You want a tank? We got it. You want support? We can do that. You want someone to lock down extremely mobile or flying enemies? We've got just the tools for the job. We can even go all in on a super-powered spell strike and play Glass Cannon for a round of combat. But that leads us into our cons. And our biggest one is our offensive presence is kind of situational. We can reliably get off normal attacks for some mediocre damage, but since we can only spell strike once per minute, our damage potential is pretty much dedicated to one hit per combat. Next, we're drawing all of our magical ability from 2 spellcasting archetypes, which means our spell slots are an extremely limited resource. And finally, we have a little bit of Mad Gish disease. We want to maximize our intelligence, both for spell striking and our devised stratagems, but we have to ensure that our strength and dexterity don't fall too far behind, both so that we can hit opponents, as well as get respectable damage off. Factor in Constitution so we don't go down in a single hit, and you don't really have a lot of attributes to play around with. But that's the build. Reed Richards combines strategy, mobility, and a touch of science to become the ultimate problem solver both on and off the battlefield. If you enjoyed this build, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments who you'd like to see next. Until then, keep rolling high, and stay fantastic.
First, I want to address the elephant in the room. That video turned into a PowerPoint at several different moments. If you've been with us at the beginning of our channel, you know that we started out with literally zero idea what we were doing. And the fact that we had Wi-Fi that really couldn't keep up was doing us no favors. Now, we've had a few upgrades that I think really help the audio and video quality, and they make the entire viewing experience much more pleasant. Now, we got a lot of comments about how others would have built Mr. Fantastic. The first of which was suggested to build him a flesh warp rather than a human, which is a good idea. We choose to stick to characters' based ancestry for a more authentic feel, but more often than not, that leaves us playing a human ancestry. And I would highly recommend that if you're ever going to play one of our builds, you would change that. Thank you. If you use one of our builds at your home game, odds are you care a little bit more about mimicking the general feel of a character more than copying them down to a T. So, if you see a few tweaks that would make the character feel better at your table, then I encourage you to make them. The other suggestion we got was to make Reed an inventor rather than investigator. And once again, if that feels better fit at your home game, by all means go for it. The reason we didn't go for it is investigator to me feels more like the character is working on a whole nother brain level, and while Reed is definitely an inventor, the inventor class focuses a lot more on making one invention super special, and Reed is constantly making different inventions and jumping to the next thing, and none of those inventions really have a lasting effect on his fighting style, so the class didn't really mesh well in our opinion. Hello all, welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder Starfighter 2nd Edition. Today, we're building the Fantastic Four's very own thing. Ben Grimm was your everyday, ordinary pilot. That is until he was caught in a cosmic storm and his best friend's experimental spacecraft that gave both him and everyone else aboard superpowers. Unfortunately, life isn't fair. While everyone else's superpowers made them get bigger and hotter, Ben got turned into a big ugly rock monster. And unlike the others, his powers didn't turn off, making even Sue's ability to be unseen seem remarkable by comparison. Eventually, Ben was able to come to terms with his new form, and became a founding member of the Fantastic Four, where he used his newfound strength to protect his family. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's rock and roll. So what do we need to play the Grim Reaper? Well, first things first, a rocky body that grants us both super strength and super durability is a must. What's that? A Marvel superhero with super strength? Shocking, I know. Next, we need to be unbreakable. not just in body, but in mind. Many of the strongest heroes in the Marvel Universe have pointed out that what truly makes the Thing so resilient isn't just his stone-hard exterior, but also his sheer, unrelenting willpower. And finally, it's clobbering time. Need I say more? Oh, I should? Well, we want to be able to punch things, like, really, really hard. For our ancestry, we'll be sticking with what Ben Grimm was before he went full grapple mode. And yes, that means we're doing yet another human build. You know the drill by now. 8 hit points, medium size, an attribute boost to both strength and con. Luckily, that means being entirely made of stone won't slow us down though. Our speed remains 25 feet per stride. And we'll be picking up the Aureate heritage, representing our earthen-infused powers. This grants us low light vision right now, and opens the door for some rock-solid Aureate feats later on. For our background, we'll be drawing from Ben's college days. He earned his way through university on a football scholarship. That makes a star athlete background a perfect fit. It gives us another boost of strength and con, as well as training in athletics and game store, as well as the assurance skill feat for our athletics, ensuring that we never have a bad day, whether we're on the football field or the battlefield. When we would roll an athletics check, we can choose to skip the roll entirely, and instead take a result of 10 plus a proficiency bonus, ignoring all other modifiers, making Ben a reliable, dependable thing. For our class, we'll be going with a newly released Guardian class. So are we making this video to celebrate the new Fantastic Four movie coming out later this week, or because we're excited about the new Guardian class? Well, why not both? As a Guardian, we get 12 plus a Constitution modifier hit points per level, tying us for the highest hit point total of any class in the game. We're only trained in Perception, but we do get expert proficiency in both Fortitude and Will saves, giving us an unbreakable mind and body. Unfortunately, our hefty form only earns us trained proficiency in reflex saves. All Guardians are trained in Athletics by default, but since we already got that from our background, we'll swap it out for Society. We'll also take Occultism, because the Fantastic Four are Earth's cosmic defenders, Piloting, for Ben's career as a pilot, and Diplomacy, because convincing the public that you're a hero when you look like a brick wall isn't exactly easy. We get access to all simple martial weapons and can wear any type of armor, or go unarmored. But here's the thing. The Guardian class is designed under the assumption they'll be wearing medium or heavy armor. Obviously, Ben doesn't need armor. His rocky exterior is defensive enough. That said, I would still recommend wearing armor early on and simply reflavoring it as your skin, as it's needed for some of these abilities to work. We'll get something later that lets us go armorless if you really don't want to rock any gear, but just know that going all natural will make the early game a bit tougher. For our attributes, we're starting with strength at a +3. While Ben definitely has super strength, there are still plenty of characters in the Marvel Universe who can hit harder. Dexterity comes in at a +1. Surprisingly, being made entirely of rock doesn't slow Ben down much, but unfortunately, he was never the most agile guy to begin with. Constitution is at a +3. Durability is the name of the game, and the Thing has brought all the cheat codes. Intelligence and Wisdom are both going to start out at +1. Ben made his way through university and even became an astronaut, but let's be honest, it's hard to shine when you're standing next to Reed Richards and Sue Storm. Finally, Charisma is at a +0. The Thing definitely had the roughest time with public perception, especially early on, before he proved that beneath his rocky exterior was a heart of gold. A brand new class means brand new class features, so let's dive on in. At level 1, Guardians gain Guardian's Armor. While wearing medium or heavy armor, we gain physical resistance equal to 1 plus half our level, and we can rest normally in that armor. Remember, if you're a stickler for flavor and don't want to wear actual armor yet, you'll have to wait a bit to make use of this, but it will still be useful by the end. We also get Shield Block, which lets us use our reaction to reduce incoming physical damage with a shield that we've already raised. Ben doesn't exactly carry a shield, but maybe your GM will let you reflavor a ripped off car door or a piece of debris. Creativity counts in this game. With the Taunt feature, we can make a gesture or shout to provoke a creature within 30 feet. If that creature targets our allies but not us with an attack, it takes a -1 penalty to its attack rolls and DCs for that action, and it becomes off guard until our next turn. Only one creature can be taunted at a time, so use this on Victor and let Reed take care of the Doombots. Next, we get 2 Guardian techniques. Ever Ready means we're always ready to jump into action. Instead of waiting for our first turn, we gain a reaction immediately upon rolling initiative, but we can only use this reaction for Guardian features, like Intercept Strike, which allows us to protect our allies. When an ally within 10 feet takes physical damage, we can step to an adjacent space and take the damage instead, applying our own resistances, weaknesses, and immunities. And if the source of the damage is our taunted enemy, we can use this out to a range of 15 feet, striding instead of stepping, as long as we still end the stride adjacent to an ally. Ben may be the easiest member of the team to hit, but he's also the hardest to damage, so he can afford to take a few extra punches. Finally, thanks to the Natural Ambition Ancestry feat, we get 2 level 1 class feats. With Larger Than Life, we're treated as one size larger when using or being targeted by actions like Disarm, Grapple, reposition, shove, trip, or swallow whole. Ben's size of the thing has always been up for debate. Maybe this feat helps explain why. And with the shoulder check class feat, we slam into a foe with our armor and throw them off balance. We make a fist strike, and on its success, the target becomes off guard against their next melee attack this turn. And on our critical success, they're off guard against all our melee attacks until the end of our next turn. Just beware though, because on a critical failure, we become off guard against the target's melee attacks until the end of our next turn. At level 2, we become even harder to ignore, thanks to the hampering stance feat. While we're in this stance, all enemies treat squares within a 5-foot emanation around us as difficult terrain, making it much harder for foes to give us the runaround and start targeting our squishier allies. For our skill feat, we pick up Titan Wrestler, letting us disarm, grapple, reposition, shove, or trip creatures up to 2 size categories larger than us, or 3 size categories larger than us once we reach legendary proficiency in athletics. Level 3 Guardians are tough to kill, which means their dying threshold is increased to dying 5 instead of dying 4. And additionally, the first time each day that we would be reduced to dying 3 or higher, we instead stay at dying 2. Ever try to kill a stone? It usually doesn't go well. And since we're making ourselves tougher to take down, we might as well grab the toughness feat as well, increasing our hit points by 1 per level, and lowering the DC of any recovery checks we have to make by 1. Oh no, we've already taken 3 whole feats from our class without grabbing an archetype. So at level 4, we're going to jump over to the Martial Artist archetype with the Martial Artist Dedication to upgrade our damage dice of our fists from D4s to D6s, and allow us to ignore the non-lethal trait on our fist attacks. Ben isn't one of those dark, gritty heroes who always kills his opponents, but giant rock hands make it pretty hard to hold back sometimes. We also got the powerful Leap skill feat, which lets us make an embattled leap, adding 5 feet of horizontal movement every time we perform a high jump, long jump, or leap. The thing may look a bit too big and bulky to pick up much airtime, but his super strength lets him lift up to 85 tons, and his own cannon weight is only about 500 pounds, so I think he's got this. Level 5 Guardians gain both weapon expertise and unbreakable expertise, granting us expert proficiency on both our strikes and our armor class when wearing medium and heavy armor. The Noble Resolve Ancestry feat brings us one step closer to Ben's legendary willpower by giving us a +1 circumstance bonus to will saves against mental effects. Additionally, we always become aware of who targeted us with that mental effect, as long as they're visible. At level 6, we'll be moving back to the Guardian feats. With Lockdown, Ben's not just a wall, he's a cage. When we strike an enemy, if we hit and deal damage, that enemy can't use move actions to leave our reach until the start of our next turn, until we move, or until we attack again with that same weapon. Charge in, land a punch, and stop more mobile targets like Venom or Spider-Man. I'm talking about Marvel Rivals, of course. In most other situations, Spider-Man's a good guy. You definitely shouldn't try to fight him. We also grabbed a hefty Holler skill feat, increasing our maximum and encumbered bulk limits by 2. But don't let Johnny use this as an excuse to turn you into his pack mule. Level 7 Guardians gain reflex expertise and the reaction time feature, increasing our perception proficiency to expert, and at the start of each turn, we gain an extra reaction that can only be used for Guardian feats and features like Shield Block or Intercept Strike. For our general feat, we'll pick up Ancestral Paragon to get the Steady on Stone Ancestry feat, allowing us to ignore difficult terrain caused by rubble or uneven stone and earth, and when we balance on such surfaces using acrobatics, we're no longer off guard and successes count as critical successes. We pick up Mountain Stance at level 8, allowing us to enter a stance where the only strikes we can make are falling stone unarmed attacks. These deal 1d8 bludgeoning damage and have the forceful, non-lethal, and unarmed traits. While we're in Mountain Stance, we gain a +4 item bonus to AC, and a +2 circumstance bonus to resist reposition, shove, trip, and similar force movement effects. However, our dexterity modifier to AC is capped off at a +0, and all of our speeds are reduced by 5 feet. Our mobility is not all bad though, because we get the wall jump skill feat at this level as well, letting us push off a wall at the end of a jump to avoid falling as long as our next action is another jump. That jump becomes a single action, which of course doesn't include a stride. Have you ever seen a living boulder do parkour? Well, honestly me neither, but it seems like it'd be fun to watch. At level 9, we get the multi-talented ancestry feat to pick up the Kineticist dedication, granting us the elemental blast action. But before you get too excited, this blast doesn't scale with us as we level, and we don't have enough free feats to manually scale it, making this dedication a bit of a waste for now. Still, we will need it for something a little bit later. Level 9 Guardians also gain Guardian Expertise, bumping our class DC up to Expert, and Battle Hardened. Our proficiency with medium and heavy armor increases to Master, while our proficiency with light and unarmored defense rises to Expert. Level 10 is finally the point where those who didn't want to wear armor finally get to start using all of Guardian's new features. The Through the Gate feat grants us the Armor and Earth ability, allowing us to summon a suit of heavy stone armor to us at any time. This armor uses our highest armor proficiency and has the following stats: a +5 AC bonus, a +1 dexterity cap, a +3 strength requirement, and it belongs to the plate group. Any runes that we're wearing that are compatible with our stone armor are automatically replicated on top of it. Now, we can choose to enter Mountain Stance for a slightly higher offensive output and increased resistance to enemy attempts to move us, or combine Armor and Earth and Hampering Stance to fully lock down foes at the cost of a little bit less damage. Level 11 Guardians get Weapon Specialization, giving us a boost to our damage. We also get Unbreakable Mastery, increasing our proficiency rank with medium and heavy armor to Master, and our proficiency with light armor and unarmored defense to Expert. And with this Streetwise skill feat, we can use our Society instead of Diplomacy to gather information. And in Familiar Settlements, we can use Recall Knowledge with Society to learn similar information instantly, because I don't think Galactus is going to wait around while you ask people for advice. If you thought we were hard to take down before, just wait until we pick up the Tough Cookie class feat at level 12. Once per day, when our current hit points is half or less, we can activate this ability to gain temporary hit points equal to half our maximum hit points for 1 minute, basically putting us right back at full hit points. We also got the Criminal Connection skill feat, which lets us return to our Yancey Street roots. In the settlement where we've established ourselves, we can roll a society check to meet up with a criminal leader and ask for a favor, though it comes with the price of a future favor. The GM sets the DC based off the request difficulty and the figure's importance. Even the Fantastic Four knows that sometimes you've got to call in a few favors, or maybe even owe a few. Shaitan Skin at level 13 lets us cast Stone Skin on ourselves 3 times per day, granting us resistance 5 to physical damage for 20 minutes. This doesn't stack with your Guardian's Armor feature, but it is useful for those times when you want to go into Mountain Stance for a little bit of defensive boost, even when we're focusing on our offenses. We also get Weapon Mastery for increased proficiency with the big guns. You know, I meant that in the script as our fists, but technically there's nothing stopping us from using big guns either. At level 14, we take the Keep Up the Good Fight class feat. Once per hour, when an enemy reduces us to 0 hit points, but doesn't immediately kill us, our determination to protect others keeps us going. Instead of being knocked out, we drop to 1 hit point, increase our wounded condition by 1, and gain temporary hit points equal to our level that lasts for a round. Ben's not just tough, he's stubborn enough to keep fighting even when the chips are down. With Eyes of the City, we can track down our opponents with the help of the locals, using our Society skill to track creatures within settlements. By using this feat, we follow the trail through word of mouth, but that does mean that someone had to have seen our target in the first place. At level 15, Guardians unlock Unbreakable Legend to boost our armor class proficiency ranks. Medium and heavy armor increase to legendary, and our light armor and unarmored defense rise to master proficiency. For our skill feat at this level, we'll get Leverage Connections. Once per week, if we're in an area where we've established connections, we can use our Society skill to request a favor fitting the group. On a critical success, we gain advice from that creature, getting a +2 bonus on the first related skill check. At this point, we are usually the friend in high places, but this will help out if you have to ask the Avengers or the X-Men for help. At level 16, we get the class feat Clobber. We can strike a foe with a mighty blow that deals an extra weapon die, and if it hits and deals damage, we automatically shove the target, applying all the shove effects of our attack roll, and knock them prone. I feel like there's some kind of joke I should be making here, but I can't for the life of me think of one. So I'll just distract you by moving on to the Cloud Jump skill feat, which triples our long jump distance and lets us high jump as long as we could previously long jump, letting us defy not just expectations, but also gravity. Guardians get Greater Weapon Specialization at level 17, which finally catches us up to the damage boost that other martials get. An Unyielding Resolve makes our mind as strong as our body. Our proficiency in will save increases to master, and when we succeed at a will save, we treat it as a critical success. When your body's a fortress and your mind's a battlement, you're basically unbeatable. Finally, the Heroic Presence feat lets us inspire our allies, granting them temporary hit points and a +2 status bonus to will saves against mental effects. Ben's not just throwing punches, he's throwing morale boosts too. At level 18, we're going to backtrack a bit to grab the Energy Interceptor class feat, letting us use Intercept Attack when an ally would take acid, cold, electricity, fire, or sonic damage, not just physical damage. That's a nice bonus, especially since Doom has a wide variety of plans to take us out, and I don't think many of them involve a fist fight. We also dive into Ben's pilot side with the Push It skill feat from Starfighter. Whenever we succeed at a piloting check, the vehicle we're piloting gains a +5 foot circumstance bonus to all of its speeds until the end of our turn, and on a critical success, this bonus increases to +10 feet. At level 19, we can step through difficult terrain with the Feather Step General feat, allowing us to step without being hindered by any circumstance. The feat describes this as more nimble grace, but I consider it you literally bulldozing your way through the battlefield. We also gain Guardian Mastery, which increases our proficiency rank in our Guardian class DC to Master. And while wearing armor, we can use that armor's item bonus to AC in place of our Dexterity modifier on reflex saves to avoid damaging effects like Fireball. If the armor has the Bulwark trait, we increase this bonus by 1. And finally, if we succeeded a save using this option, it counts as a critical success instead. As the armor has the Bulwark trait, we increase this bonus by 1. And finally, if we succeeded a save using this option, at level 20, we take the Unyielding Force class feat. So while wearing medium or heavy armor, the resistance we gain from Guardian's armor increases to 6 plus half our level. And to finish off this build, the Fantastic Four come in contact with a lot of alien races, so the Fly Anything skill feat will let us commandeer a vehicle on an alien planet for a speedy getaway. From fist to flight, the Thing is ready to rock any situation on Earth or beyond. Thanks for joining us on this rocky ride to build the Thing in Pathfinder 2e. Whether you're ready to clobber your way through battles, or just want to bring a little Marvel magic to your game, this build has you covered. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any future character creations. Got ideas for other iconic heroes or villains that you want to see? Drop them in the comments below, and maybe you'll see them in the next video. Till next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one. So, here's the thing. This build was built, scripted, and ready to record as a monk when the Guardian class came out, and as I was reading through that class, I was thinking, wow, I wish I had my hands on this sooner. I could have built Ben this way. And then I got to the clobber feat, and that's when I thought, I'm redoing it all. As a result, there's some anti-synergy here. The Guardian class really wants to wear heavy armor, but if you want to be a mountain stance, which we took, you can't wear any armor. This means that to play this build with anything close to effectiveness, you have to walk around unarmored before spending an action every combat to either go into mountain stance to focus on offenses, or use armor and earth to use the Guardian's defensive skills. And while that may sound like a super cool decision that can result in being good at offenses or defenses, in practice, it just means that in any given combat, you're turning off half your build. I would highly recommend choosing which playstyle you want to do and building into that specifically. This middle-of-the-road approach just doesn't do it for me. Hello, and welcome back to Times of Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder Starfighter 2nd Edition. Today, we're building Johnny Storm, the only guy who considers spontaneous combustion a valid lifestyle choice. Johnny was a young, hot-headed high schooler who gained superpowers after joining his sister, Sue Storm, her scientist boyfriend, Dr. Reed Richards, and pilot Ben Grimm on an unauthorized spaceflight aboard the Marvel 1. During this mission, the crew was bombarded by intense cosmic radiation, which mutated each one of them in unique ways. Johnny's body was transformed into a fiery plasma-like form, granting him the ability to engulf himself in flames, fly, and project fire. Together, the four became the Fantastic Four, a superhero team dedicated to exploring the unknown, traveling through space, time, and alternate dimensions while protecting Earth from a bunch of science-based threats. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So what do we need to make this hot-headed hero? Well, first, we need to be able to throw fire that leaves the battlefield extra crispy, just the way Johnny likes it. Next, well, actually that's kind of it. Johnny's powers are pretty much limited to the generation and manipulation of heat. Paizo games usually revolve around a trade-off between power and versatility. We've built plenty of pyromancers on this channel, but most of them had some kind of backup plan. Prince Zuko had martial arts to augment his fire breathing. Charizard could mega evolve into a ferocious dragon and batter his opponents in melee. And heck, even Endeavor had a barbarian archetype to boost his damage and durability. But today, we're going all in. We're going to see just how far a character can go by focusing purely on pyromantic abilities. So grab your oven mitts, because this build is coming in hot. As it turns out, the Human Torch is, well, a human. It's kind of in the name. That gives us 8 hit points, a medium size, and an attribute boost to dexterity and charisma. We'll stride 25 feet per action, and just how we picked up the Oriad heritage to reflect Ben Grimm's rock-based abilities, we'll take the Efreet heritage here. This gives us fire resistance equal to half our level, and reduces the severity of all environmental heat effects by 1 step, as well as unlocking access to a host of fire-based ancestry feats down the line. Johnny's worn many hats over the years: firefighter, CFO, mechanic, actor, race car driver, but the only thing that all these roles have in common is that no matter the job, Johnny always makes sure that all eyes are firmly placed on him. So we'll go with the entertainer background to reflect Johnny's flair for grabbing attention. This background gives us a boost to charisma and dexterity, as well as training in performance and theater lore, and the fascinating performance skill feat. When we make a performance check, we target one creature and compare our result to its will DC. On a success, that creature is fascinated for 1 round. But in high-stakes situations like combat, we'll need a critical success, and the action gains the incapacitation trait. As our performance skill improves, so too does the number of people that we can enthrall, up to 4 at expert, 10 at master, and an unlimited number once we reach legendary. We'll kick things off with the sorcerer class, making Johnny probably one of the squishiest members of the team, with only 6 plus our con modifier in hit points per level. We get training and perception, as well as reflex and fortitude saves, but our will saves start off at expert. Our bloodline will grant us training in nature, helping us understand the forces behind our fiery powers, and will supplement that with acrobatics for high-flying stunts and diplomacy, as Johnny usually ends up as the face, even to the rest of the party's chagrin. We can wield simple weapons, but let's be honest, our real firepower is entirely innate. And finally, since Johnny tends to burn through whatever he's wearing as long as it's not made of unstable molecules, armor is kind of a no-go. For our attributes, strength starts at a +1. Johnny's in shape, but let's be honest, there's not much need to hit the gym when Ben's here to do all the heavy lifting. Dexterity is at a +3, perfect for high-flying stunts and dodging incoming attacks. Con sits at a +1. Cosmic radiation is great for superpowers, but terrible for life insurance. Intelligence and wisdom both clock in at +0. Johnny's a hothead in every sense of the word. And charisma comes in at a blazing +4. Johnny's true power was inside him all along. If by true power, we mean the ability to go supernova, and by inside him all along, we mean after he got put in the cosmic microwave. We start this build like we start most of our builds, by covering our subclass. For sorcerers, that means our bloodline. The elemental bloodline gives us power over earth, fire, metal, water, or wood. There's no prize for guessing which element we're going to go with. Actually, you know what? There is. You've just won a free subscription to the channel. Go ahead and click that subscribe button to redeem it. We'll be taking the elemental bloodline, which gives us the elemental toss focus spell for free. This gives us a basic throw fire spell, letting us make a spell attack roll against a creature within 30 feet. On a success, we deal fire damage, and on a critical success, we double it. We also gain our bloodline's blood magic effect. Whenever we cast a bloodline spell using a focus point, or a sorcerer's gift spell using a spell slot, elemental energy flares around us. For 1 round, we gain a +2 status bonus to intimidation checks, or the target takes 1 fire damage per spell rank. And if the spell already dealt fire damage, spoilers, if it came from us, it probably did, we combine this with the spell's initial damage before applying resistances and weaknesses. What really sets sorcerers apart from other spontaneous casters is sorcerer's potency. Our innate magical powers enhances their spells. When we cast a spell from our spell slots that deal damage or restores hit points, we gain a status bonus to the spell's initial damage or healing equal to its rank. For our ancestry feat, we'll pick up Molten Wind, granting us training in deception and the group impression skill feat, because turning Johnny into the best PR guy for the world's first superhero family. And of course, we wouldn't really be a spellcaster without spells, now would we? As a sorcerer, we get 4 cantrips plus a sorcerer's gift cantrip from our bloodline, and 3 spells plus another from our sorcerer's gift for every rank. For our cantrips, we get Ignition. We point at a creature within 30 feet, causing it to burst into magical flames. Make a spell attack roll against its AC. On a hit, the target takes fire damage, and if the target is within our melee reach, we can instead make a melee spell attack roll, increasing all the spell's damage dice to d6s. And if that's not enough fire damage for you, then rejoice, because on a critical success, the target not only takes double damage, but also suffers from persistent fire damage. With the Eat Fire spell, when we would take fire damage, we instead consume the flames, granting us resistance 5 until the end of our current turn. This spell remains active until the end of our next turn, unless we fall unconscious or exhale. That includes talking, so you might want to keep the big mouth shut. While active, we can end the spell early by using the Belch Smoke action, exhaling a 5-foot burst of smoke within 20 feet. All creatures inside that smoke are concealed from each other and from the outside. This cloud lasts for 1 minute, but a strong wind can disperse it early. We also take Illuminate. This lets us ignite all non-magical fire-based light sources, like candles, lanterns, or scones, within a 30-foot emanation. If a light source is being held by an unwilling creature, they can make a reflex save to extinguish it before it draws attention. Stabilize can be flavored as Fantastic Four brand emergency first aid. We target a dying creature within 30 feet and stop them from flatlining. The target immediately loses the dying condition, but remains unconscious at 0 hit points. Sure, I don't know how Johnny stabilizes people from 30 feet away with 0 medical tools, but maybe he's just that dazzling. And just like that, we're out of fire-based cantrips, so we have to be a little bit creative on our next pick. With Puff of Poison, we burn up the oxygen around a creature within 10 feet, forcing them to make a fortitude save. On a failure, they'll take full initial and persistent poison damage, and on a critical failure, both have doubled. No smoke without fire, right? For our first rank spells, we get Breathe Fire for free from our bloodline. We unleash a 15-foot cone of flame. Enemies in the area must make a basic reflex save or take fire damage. Great for those moments when you can't decide which villain to hit. So you hit them all. We can cast Scorching Blast with 1 action to summon a massive fire around ourselves. Until the end of our turn, we can use another single action to blast targets within 30 feet with a ranged spell attack. On a hit, they take fire damage, and on a crit, they also take persistent fire damage. Because why cast utility spells when you can just light the problem on fire? The Forge spell lets us superheat a creature or unattended metal object within 30 feet. The target must make a basic fortitude save against fire damage. If it's a metal object, its hardness is reduced by the damage dealt until the end of our next turn. And on a critical failure, if the target is a metal creature, it also gets weakness to physical damage, setting up Ben and Reed for some fantastic combo attacks. And finally, with the spell Wisp Ally, we summon a tiny wisp of light within 120 feet that dazzles even the most focused foes. The wisp sheds bright light within a 10 feet radius, but it doesn't occupy space or provide flanking. When we cast or sustain the spell, we can move the wisp to a new creature within range. That creature must make a will save, and on a failure it becomes off guard until the end of its next turn, and if it fails again against another wisp in the same round, it becomes dazzled instead. Alright, so I lied. Turns out, Johnny's got utility as well. 8.5 minutes in, and we've just finished level 1. Man, don't you just love spellcasters? Don't worry, it's all downhill from here. At level 2, we'll pick up the class feat Propelling Sorcery, which lets us swap out the blood magic effect from our bloodline. Instead of getting a bonus to intimidation or dealing extra damage, we can now either step as a free action, or move the target 5 feet in a direction of our choice. Positioning is crazy important in Pathfinder, but spellcasters often struggle to have the action economy to make it work. This lets us free up an action to reposition, like getting ourselves out of reactive strike range without wasting a full action to do it. Now I plan on flying around a lot in this build, but safety first, so we're going to grab the Catfall as our first skill feat. It reduces fall damage based off of our acrobatics proficiency. At Trained, we ignore 10 feet of fall damage, Expert raises up to 25 feet, Master 50 feet, and once we reach Legendary, we ignore fall damage altogether, because nothing kills the vibe faster than crashing into the pavement mid-flame on. Third level sorcerers get signature spells. These are spells that we know so well that we can cast them with any available spell slot without having to have learned them at that spell rank. We'll also get a general feat at this level. We'll be taking the Fleet feat, which increases our movement speed by 5 feet, because sometimes the real superpower is cardio. This little boost lets us outrun fleeing supervillains, especially helpful since we can't exactly chase them down from the skies. At least not yet. For this level's spells, we gain the Sorcerer's Gift, Resist Energy. We touch a creature to envelop it in a shield of elemental energy for 10 minutes. We choose acid, cold, electricity, fire, or sonic damage, and the target, along with all of its gear, gains resistance 5 to that damage type. Since we already have fire resistance from the Ifrit heritage, we can use this to replicate Johnny's inherent cold resistance, while the rest of the damage types could be explained by some creative uses of the unstable molecules. The Blazing Bolt spell lets us fire a ray of heat and flame at a creature within 60 feet, making a spell attack roll against its AC. On a hit, the target takes fire damage, or double on a critical hit. For each additional action that we spend casting the spell, up to 3 actions total, we can fire an additional ray at a different target. These rays are all separate attacks, but our multiple attack penalty doesn't apply until after we make all the attack rolls. And if we spend 2 or more actions casting the spell, each ray deals double the damage dice. Floating Flame is great for longer fights where conserving spell slots matters. We create a flame within a 5-foot square up to 30 feet away that burns without fuel and follows our commands. When it appears, each creature in the square takes fire damage with a basic reflex save, and each time we sustain the spell, we can levitate the flame up to 10 feet. It deals the same damage to any creature whose space it moves through during the fight. The Cauterize Wound spell lets us play a bit more of a support role. We target up to 5 willing creatures within 60 feet and seal their bleeding wounds with fire. Any affected creature that has persistent bleed damage can choose to take 1 fire damage to immediately attempt a flat check to recover from that bleed damage, using the lower DC typically granted by effective assistance. For the next minute, we can spend a single action with a concentrate trait to repeat this effect in case they failed their flat check or just got persistent bleed damage again. At level 4, we take Split Shot to demonstrate our mastery of pyrokinesis. If our next action is to cast a spell without a duration that requires an attack roll against a single target, we can choose a second target within the spell's range and roll a single attack roll, comparing the result to the AC of both targets. This counts as 1 attack for calculating a multiple attack penalty, and the second target takes half the normal damage and suffers no additional effects beyond the spell's initial damage. For our skill feat, we'll pick up Stifle Flames, which lets us become the world's greatest firefighter. Our training grants us a +2 bonus on checks to extinguish non-magical fires and lowers the DC to end persistent fire damage by 5, in case a reckless firebolt hits someone it shouldn't have. Level 5 sorcerers gain Magical Fortitude, increasing our Fortitude save proficiency to Expert, as well as the Heat Wave Ancestry feat, which lets us turn enemy fire attacks to our advantage. Once every 10 minutes, when we would take fire damage, we can use our reaction to twist the flames into a screen of heat and smoke, granting us concealment until the start of our next turn. When life gives you fireballs, make smoke screens. Level 5 also unlocks our 3rd rank spells, including our Sorcerer's Gift, Fireball. This classic spell unleashes a fiery blast on a point within 500 feet, creating a 20-foot burst that deals fire damage to all creatures in the area. You won't win many points for originality here, but you will win points for using the best spell for literally every single situation. With the Blazing Dive spell, we can gather superheated air beneath us, launching ourselves 15 feet straight up into the air, before soaring up to 60 feet in a straight line and crashing down like a fiery comet. When we land, a blast of blistering air erupts outward in a 10-foot emanation, dealing both bludgeoning damage and fire damage to all creatures in the area with a basic reflex save. This spell not only combines both mobility and offense, but it's also our first non-cantrip offensive spell that doesn't deal just fire damage, giving us a way to bypass fire immunities at last. The Skyfire Wing spell lets us sprout blazing wings of fire, granting us a fly speed equal to our land speed at the cost of our primary arms becoming wings, so we can't hold items or wield weapons, and we drop anything that we were holding. While in this form, we gain a wing unarmed attack that does 1d8 fire damage and has the backswing, reach, and unarmed traits, and on a critical hit, it also deals persistent fire damage. Finally, the Flash Flyer spell lets us return to our Marvel rival roots and add some battlefield control to our repertoire. We ignite a spreading blaze in a 10-foot burst within 120 feet, dealing fire damage to creatures in the area both when we cast a spell and if they end their turn there. That area also becomes hazardous terrain. Creatures moving through it on the ground take 4 points of fire damage for every square injured. The flames obscure vision, making everything on each side of the fire concealed from each other, and each time we sustain the spell, the radius expands by 5 feet. Turns out, Johnny's real arch rival is Smokey the Bear. At level 6, we pick up our advanced bloodline spell, Elemental Motion, granting us a fly speed equal to our land speed for a minute. Functionally, it's the same effect as Skyfire Wings, but a few major advantages. First, it costs a focus point, which is easier to recover than a spell slot. Just a quick 10-minute rest and we're ready to go. Second, and this one's big, we get to keep access to our hands while flying, making this the perfect getaway spell for any mission involving a stolen MacGuffin. For our skill feat, we grab Tumbling Teamwork, letting our agile movements distract foes and open the window for our allies. When we successfully tumble through an enemy space, an adjacent ally can step as a reaction, as long as they stay adjacent to that same enemy. Level 7 sorcerers get Expert Sorcerer Spellcasting, letting us burn brighter and, more importantly, hotter. We also grab the Aerobatics Master skill feat to truly embrace the high-flying Human Torch lifestyle. This lets us move through the air with cinematic grace, granting us a +2 bonus on acrobatics checks to maneuver in flight, and even better, we can combine 2 maneuvers into a single action by increasing the DC by 5, or 3 maneuvers if we hit legendary acrobatics, bumping the DC by 10 instead. Basically, we just turned into a fighter jet that talks back. With rank 4 spells unlocked, we upgrade a fiery batch of upgrades to truly let us take to the skies and stay there, while making life miserable for anyone who tries to follow. Unfettered movement is our bloodline gift, letting us slip the grip of anyone foolish enough to try and hold on to a literal fireball. While it's active, we ignore circumstance penalties to our speed and automatically succeed at any escape attempts, unless it's from a magical effect with a higher rank than the spell. Ever burnt your hand on a stove? Now imagine trying to hold on to that stove while it's rocking through the air at Mach 20. The Fire Shield spell wraps us in a layer of living flame, granting us cold resistance 5 and immunity to mild and severe environmental cold. We can also raise the shield for a +1 circumstance bonus to our AC, and use the shield block reaction with it as well. The shield has a hardness 10 and 40 hit points. Obviously it's immune to fire and has no broken threshold, though its hardness is halved against water effects. And if a melee attacker decides to punch while we're blocking with a shield made of literal fire, they of course take fire damage. That's what we call a learning experience. Wall of Fire lets us carve out a battlefield like a pyromancer with a paintbrush. We choose between a 60-foot long line or a 10-foot radius ring of flame, and anyone that passes through or starts their turn inside of that flame takes fire damage. The wall also provides concealment between both sides. Congratulations, you've just created the no-go zone. Finally, we take the Fly spell, giving us yet another way to get a fly speed equal to our land speed. We now have 3 different ways to take to the skies, meaning there's no reason for you to ever be ground identified. Remember when I said that Fireball was the best spell for every situation? Don't you wish that every spell could just be Fireball? Well, at level 8, it kinda can. With the detonating spellclass feat, our spells become volatile and explosive. If our next action is to cast a spell that deals damage to a single target and it successfully hits, the spell detonates, dealing splash damage equal to the spell's rank against all adjacent creatures. The splash damage matches the spell's damage type and doesn't affect the original target, unlike normal splash damage. Okay, so maybe it doesn't turn every spell literally into Fireball, and maybe the splash damage isn't exactly Fireball level, but turning your rays into mini Fireballs still sounds like a win to me. We also got the Kip Up skill feat, because lying down on the job isn't very fantastic. We can now stand up from prone as a free action, and it doesn't trigger reactions. That means whether we've been knocked prone, blasted back, or hit by a surprise sweep, we can pop right back into the skies like nothing ever happened. At level 9, our reflexes heat up, literally with the Reflex Expertise feature, raising our reflex proficiency to expert. We also get Scorching Disarm, letting us weaponize our pyrokinesis to attempt a disarm check against a creature using our athletics, without needing a free hand. On a success, the target can either choose to drop the item that it's holding, or take 46 fire damage, and on a critical success, it must drop the weapon and still take the fire damage, giving a whole new meaning to the phrase burning through weapons. With our 5th rank spells, we finally get a way to flame on. Elemental Form finally unlocks Johnny's signature transformation. We channel our planar power to assume a medium elemental battle form, and in the fire form, we blaze across the battlefield. While transformed, our AC becomes 19 plus our level. We gain 10 temporary hit points, dark vision, and ignore armor check penalties and speed reductions. Our unarmed melee attacks become flaming tendril strikes that deal 1d8 fire damage, and we gain a speed of 50 feet, fire resistance 10, and weakness 5 to cold and water. Next, we tear open the ground with Blazing Fissure, creating a 120-foot searing line of molten magma that leaves scorched earth and scorched enemies in its wake. Creatures standing on solid ground must attempt a reflex save, or get hit with both bludgeoning and fire damage, and fall prone. Then, there's the Flame Dancer spell, which we can use to imbue a creature with Fiery Flare. Their unarmed strikes deal an additional 2d6 fire damage, and on a crit, they deal persistent fire damage. When the target demoralizes an opponent, they can use Performance instead of Intimidation, trading Scary for Stylish. Sure, this doesn't seem like something that Johnny can do, until you remember that we can cast it on ourselves, to essentially augment all of our already powerful fire-based abilities. And finally, we get Mantle of the Magma Heart, which cranks up our heat way past OSHA limits. We surround ourselves with radiant fire magic, turning ourselves into a molten figure of pure destruction. When we cast, we can pick 2 of the following effects, and swap out the effects later with a concentrate action. Enlarging Eruption makes us become large and gives us a +2 status bonus to melee damage, 5 feet of reach, at the cost of becoming Clumsy 1. That's not really in character, but there are other options like Fiery Grasp, turn our fist into lava hammers, dealing 1d8 bludgeoning damage as well as 2d6 fire damage and 1d6 persistent fire damage. Heart of Fire hurts anyone who touches or punches us with non-reach melee attacks. And Warming Flames, which grants us resistance to both cold and fire damage. At level 10, we unlock our advanced Bloodline spell, Elemental Blast. Now you could argue that basically everything we've done so far could be called an Elemental Blast. And you wouldn't be wrong, but this one's got the official label, so it must be special. We gather Searing Elemental Power to unleash it in a shape of our choosing, either a 10-foot radius burst, a 30-foot cone, or a 60-foot line. Every creature in that area must make a basic reflex save or get flash fried with fire damage. We also get the Slippery Prey skill feat, which helps us escape from foes who try to grapple us before we have a chance to flame on, by reducing the multiple attack penalty from our repeated escape attempts in the same round. At level 11, we get Perception Mastery, Weapon Expertise, and the Rolling Landing skill feat. If we fall and take no damage, we can use our reaction to immediately stride up to our full speed. Now, if the enemies find a way to stop and drop you, you can roll your way to safety. 11th level sorcerers also learn 6th rank spells, like Tree of Seasons, which is a sorcerer's gift that doesn't really fit the character, so we'll be skipping it, and Flame Vortex, to conjure a fiery vortex in a 5-foot radius, 40-foot tall cylinder within 120 feet. Flying creatures treat this area as difficult terrain, and each creature in the area takes bludgeoning and fire damage with a basic reflex save. When we sustain the spell, we can move the vortex up to 20 feet in a straight line, dealing the same damage to any creature that it passes through. Scintillating Safeguard lets us pull up a flaming shield around ourselves or allies. When an effect would deal physical or energy damage to us or our allies within 30 feet, we can react by shielding up to 5 living creatures with a flame barrier. We choose one type of damage dealt by the triggering effect, and each target gains resistance 10 to that damage type, but only against the initial damage, not any persistent or lingering effects from it. We also pick up the Overheat spell from Starfinder. We target one creature within 60 feet with a blast of concentrated heat, dealing fire damage with basic reflex save. On a failed save, the target's held equipment becomes hot for 1 round, forcing the target to drop the item at the start of its turn or take even more fire damage. At level 12, we finally have a way to punch through fire resistance with the Overwhelming Energy feat. If our next action is to cast a spell, it ignores resistance up to our level. This applies to all damage from the spell, including persistent and ongoing effects, but it doesn't bypass immunities. Keep this in your back pocket the next time Doom comes around to make a move on your sister. All this villain fighting is hard work, which is why it's important to take some time off the battlefield every once in a while to do what you enjoy. That's why we're picking up the Impressive Performance feat. We inspire admiration with our performances, allowing us to make an impression using performance instead of diplomacy. After performing for at least 10 minutes, we can target up to 10 audience members with ease. This increases to 20 on a 1-hour performance and 50 on a 2-hour performance. Go get another acting job, or just go pick up girls on karaoke night. We won't judge. At level 13, we pick up the Aerialist Ancestry feat to gain a +2 circumstance bonus to our acrobatics checks to maneuver in flight, and a +5 foot status bonus to our fly speed whenever we're flying via magic. We also get the Defensive Robes feature increasing our unarmored proficiency to expert, weapon specialization, giving us a damage boost if we for some reason decide to pick up a weapon, and rank 7 spells. At this point, we've just about exhausted all the fire spells available, so use the extra spell slots for heightening your non-signature spells, or just pick up Cone of Cold to hit around resistances. We do, however, get our Sorcerer's Gift, Energy Aegis, for some resistance to just about every energy type out there, and Fiery Body to become Living Flame, gaining immunity to fire, resistance 10 to precision damage, and weakness 5 to cold or water. Creatures that touch us or hit us with unarmed non-reach melee weapons take fire damage, and our unarmed strikes deal an extra d4 of fire damage. But wait, there's more. All of our fire spells deal 1 additional die of fire damage. We can cast Ignition as a 1-action innate spell, and in this form, we gain a fly speed of 40 feet, and we no longer need to breathe. Finally, we get Dehydrate. We ignite the inner fire of all creatures in the area, dealing persistent fire damage with basic fortitude save. Creatures with the water or plant traits worsen their degree by 1 step, and while affected, they must attempt an additional fortitude save at the end of each turn. On a failure, they're enfeebled 1 until the start of the next turn, and on a critical failure, they're enfeebled 2. This effect ends when the persistent fire damage ends. Use this the next time Namor makes an attempt at your sister. Man, she's really popular with the supervillain crowd. At level 14, we pick up the Spell Shroud feat. If we cast a spell targeting ourselves, like Fiery Body, we create a 15-foot burst of heat that lasts until our next turn, granting creatures inside concealment. Distracting performance lets us turn our tendency to demand attention to good use. When we create diversion, we use performance instead of deception, and an ally benefits instead of us. This effect lasts until the end of their turn, ending early if their actions break the diversion, such as if they attack or cast a spell. At level 15, we get Toughness, increasing our maximum hit points by our level, and reducing the DC of any recovery checks we make by 1. And Master Spellcaster increases our spellcasting proficiency further. For our rank 8 spells, all we really have is the Sorcerer's Gift, Earthquake, which lets us shoot an earthquake gun that Reed made. I don't know why this spell isn't an Earth-specific spell, but we get it. Level 16 gives us Scintillating Spell, to burn so brightly it's blinding. If our next action is cast a spell without the darkness trait, no duration, and requiring a reflex save, it bursts in dazzling light. Creatures that fail their save are dazzled for a round, and those that critically fail are blinded for a round. We also get Nimble Crawl, so that we can propel ourselves at full speed along the ground, even if we do find ourselves prone. Level 17 sorcerers get Majestic Will, increasing our will saves to master and treating all successes as critical successes. And with the Blazing Aura Ancestry feat, once per day at the start of our turn, we can erupt into flames. You know, unlike we normally do at the start of our turn. Enemies in a 20-foot emanation take fire damage with a basic reflex save, and allies in the area become quickened 1 for 1 round, and can use the extra action on their turn to either strike or stride. Top that off with 9th rank spells, like Wrathful Storm, letting us shoot our Hurricane Gun? At least this rank gives us the Falling Stars for a combo attack that we can use to have men throw up 4 pieces of rubble and send them back down with a fiery finish, each of which create a 40-foot burst with a 10-foot central area that cannot overlap. Creatures in the central 10-foot burst take bludgeoning damage, followed by an explosion of fire damage to all creatures within the full 40-foot burst. Any creature caught in multiple bursts takes only 1 basic reflex save for each type of damage that they take. What's better than burning our foes to a crisp? Burning our foes to a crisp twice. That's why at level 18, we're taking the Echoing Spellclass feat. If our next action is to cast a 4th rank or lower spell with no duration, we can cast it a second time before the end of our next turn without using an additional spell slot. And while we're here, we'll also pick up the Streetwise skill feat, to use our street smarts rather than looking for clues, using our society to recall knowledge rather than needing to use diplomacy to gather information. It's not that we couldn't use our way with words, we're just kind of on a time crunch. At level 19, sorcerers get Legendary Spellcasting, increasing our spellcasting proficiency to its highest form. Sure, Johnny may only throw fireballs, but he throws fireballs better than anyone else around. We'll also grab Incredible Initiative for a +2 bonus on all initiative rolls, and finally, Bloodline Paragon, giving us a 10th rank spell slot and 2 10th rank spells to use it with. Pick your 2 favorite spells and rest assured that at this rank, they will incinerate anything in your path. To wrap up this build, we'll take Spell Shape Mastery at level 20, letting us apply any of our spell shape feats without needing to spend an extra action, letting us use that extra action for just about anything we want. Repositioning, taunting your foes. Heck, Johnny's not even one to pass up hitting on a villain if they're cute enough. And finally, we'll pick up the Acrobatics Assurance skill feat to ensure that we never fall out of the sky while trying to skyride a flaming 4. And there you have it, the Human Torch, Pathfinder 2e style. From hot-headed teen to full-blown firestorm, this build gives you the explosive flare, skyrocketing mobility, and literal firepower to light up a battlefield. Whether you're blasting your enemies to ash, crash landing like a meteor, or just showing off your aerobatics because it looks cool, you'll always be bringing the heat. If you like this build, make sure to let us know who you'd like to see next in the comments below, and like and subscribe so that you actually get notified whenever we do make those builds. But until next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one. So, Johnny. No notes. Good build. So, there you have it. The Fantastic Four. I'm pretty proud of each of these builds. The one that I like most is definitely Sue Storm, and Johnny is the one I definitely like least. Probably because going with the Fire Sorcerer and picking on the fire spells doesn't really require a whole lot of creativity. So I don't really feel very proud of that. I really like how the team came up to a pretty balanced team, with Reed being a skill monkey with high precision damage, Sue being a support caster, Ben being a tank, and Johnny being a typical blaster caster. The parties kind of formed your typical adventuring party, and that wasn't intentional. Okay, so you've heard enough outros at this point. I don't really know what else to say, so I guess I'll just